Good morning or good afternoon. Welcome to our session. My name is Tongshai Chang. Three of my colleagues join me for this presentation. We are all from institutional research and academic planning at the UC Office of the President. Ola.
Hello, I'm Ola.
Hello, I'm Yang Yang.
Hello, I'm Courtney Sanders.
Thank you all for your introduction. So Ola, can you please share your screen? Thanks. Our presentation is about diversity, campus climate, and student success at UC. A paper published by Sylvia Hurtado and several other scholars summarizes a four-dimensional campus racial climate model. They're the institution's historical legacy of inclusion of racial ethnic groups, the structural diversity or representation of racial ethnic groups, the psychological climate of perceptions and attitudes between and among groups, and the behavioral climate. For our research, we use the administrative and undergraduate student experience survey data to examine three dimensions: the structural diversity, the psychological climate, and the student success. And we'll present preliminary results today. Now I turn over to Ola to talk about the structural diversity.
Thank you, Tongsheng. When it comes to structural diversity at UC between 2000 and 2020, we have seen some increases in the enrollment of underrepresented minorities at UC. There has also been a steady increase of international students since 2010. White enrollment, on the other hand, has experienced a decline, going down from 41.57% in 2000 to 21.32% in 2020. A big reason for the increasing diversity at UC can be attributed to the Hispanic population. So the enrollment of African Americans and American Indians are still relatively low because Hispanic Latinx makes up the bulk of what we term URG. Overall, Asian young adults also appear to be the most likely to enroll at UC. When we're talking about fields or disciplines and how diverse those are, we can see that the gains in Hispanic and Latinx enrollment has caused an increase of URG enrollment or presence across all disciplines. White and Asian enrollees appear to have significant presence across all disciplines, but there are still issues with African Americans and their enrollments within the STEM discipline, engineering, computer science, and physical sciences and math. When we're looking at the diversification at UC, since the ban, the Prop 209 in 1996, UC has struggled to keep up with the pace of the diversity of the state itself. There is a 23% between UC high gap between URG high school graduates and URG freshman enrollees in the year 2000, which rose to 24% in 2010 and still at 23% in 2019. So as you can see, the gap continues to persist. After the affirmative action was banned, admission rates for Black, Latino, and Native American applicants was greatly impacted. Asian students continue to make up an increasingly larger share of enrollment at UC. Black student enrollment continues to be lower. So despite the gains in the enrollment of the URG, the gap has been unable to close or reduce, and that has remained consistent over the last two decades. So when we're talking about the presence of URG at UC, it is important to just mention that even though some URGs are actually admitted to UC, especially African Americans, they still don't enroll. This could be because when they're admitted at UC, they don't see white Black representation in terms of instructors. A high achieving Black student, for example, may never consider a school at UC as an option because there are fewer other Black students on some campuses. So although the number of African-American students admitted has actually gone up in recent years, the fact remains that students don't want to attend a campus where they feel unrepresented. UC is taking note of all of these things that are going on with regards to diversity and on campuses, and a lot of work is being done to address these issues. So I'll turn it over to my colleague Yang to talk about the psychological climate.
Thank you, Ola. I will talk about students' perception of campus climate using UQ's data. For those who may not know UQ's, it stands for UC Undergraduate Experience Survey. In the past survey administrations, we had a survey response rates ranging from 33% to 41%. UQ's has quite a few climate-related questions. We selected several ones that are more related to diversity. We derived 3 measures: climate, respect, and belonging from these questions. I will present the result of each of them. The first one is students' responses to campus climate questions. Students' ratings on campus climate have become more positive over the years, as highlighted in green. This is true for almost all racial groups. In general, however, African-American students reported less favorable responses. This one presents students' ratings on how they feel students of their race, ethnicity are respected on campus. There's no clear trend, as you can see. Students' ratings show that the highest in 2012 and the lowest in 2016. Similar trend present for different racial ethnic groups. Since 2016, there has been an increasing trend overall and almost for all racial ethnic groups. In general, URG students are less likely to feel students of their race, ethnicity are respected at campus, especially African-American students. The last one is students' sense of belonging. As you can see, there is a similar pattern as the respect measure presented in the previous slide. In 2012, students had the strongest sense of belonging, and then there's a declining trend until 2020. In general, students' sense of belonging is pretty high across racial groups, with African-American students showing lower sense of belonging. As Ola presented, we did see an increasing trend of structural diversity. However, except for the climate measure, we did not see steadily increasing trends for the respect and belonging measures. We're not sure about the reason, but UC has made a lot of efforts actually to improve sense of belonging. They apparently have not worked as expected, so there's still more for UC to do in the future. Next, I will turn over to Courtney to talk about student success.
Thanks, Yang. So here we have freshman retention and graduation rates across the 20-year time period. And you can see that retention rates represented by the orange circles at the top have remained consistent over time. However, when looking at 4-year graduation rates represented by the darker blue areas of the bar, they have increased about 21 percentage points since 2000 and about 9 percentage points since 2010. And here we have retention and graduation rates broken out by race ethnicity, looking at 3 cohorts, 2000, 2010, and 2016. And you can see that there are some differences between race ethnicity groups for retention and graduation rates during those 3 time periods. But for 4-year graduation rates, there are substantial increases for all groups over time. However, those gaps for African American, American Indian, and Hispanic Latinx students still remain. And so here again, we have retention and graduation rates broken out by race ethnicity, but we're looking at students who responded positively to the respect or sense of belonging items, again, looking at 3 cohorts. And both retention and graduation rates are a bit higher for these students. So retention rates range from about 96 to 99% for students in these 3 years, and graduation rates are also a bit higher for these students as well. And so we decided to dig a little bit deeper into the campus climate and student graduation rates. And we looked at campus climate and four-year graduation rate first, looking at some correlations. And you can see for 3 campuses that we pulled out as an example, because we know that they have some differences in graduation rates. There are statistically significant relationships there, but you can see that the correlation is small and negative. So that means that there is a weak negative relationship between campus climate and four-year graduation rate. And so that's something that we plan to do some additional analyses to look into. And then we also looked at chi-square analyses for graduation rates for students who responded to students of my race ethnicity are respected. And so we have four-year graduation rates for students who responded positively versus students who responded negatively. And you can see for each of the 3 campuses that there are differences for positive and negative responses that are statistically significant. But if you look at the phi coefficient in the right column, the effect size is pretty small. And there were similar results when looking at graduation rates for students who responded to, I feel like I belong at this campus. Again, for all 3 campuses, there were statistically significant differences for students who responded positively versus negatively, but the effect sizes were small there as well. So this means that there are some relationships between these items and graduation rates, but there may be limited practical significance. And I will turn it back over to Tongshen to provide a summary for you.
Thank you, Courtney. So our preliminary results show that UC undergraduate racial ethnic diversity has increased over the past 2 decades with more URG students. However, the gap in racial ethnic diversity between high school graduates and UC enrollment remains the same of this time period. This means there are a lot of things the state, public schools, UC, and high school students need to do together to reduce and eventually eliminate the gap. UC campuses have made a lot of efforts to better understand and improve campus climate and a sense of belonging. However, overall, UC students' view on campus climate is only slightly more positive now than 15 years ago. But they fear students of their race ethnicity are less respected, and most students report a lower sense of belonging now than 15 years ago. This implies that increasing the representation of people of color is important, but it may not improve the campus climate for diversity by nature. Institutions need to do more to improve the climate. Graduation rates have increased significantly since 2000. This is true for all racial ethnic groups. Belonging and respect of students' race and ethnicity are statistically and positively correlated to their academic completion. This again implies institutional leaders should create more effective programs to strengthen the psychological climate and help students successfully complete their education. And even more importantly, live a great college life. Thank you so much for watching our video, and please let us know your feedback and comments.